What's up, bro? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to the episode of the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited to be in conversation with my next guest. I think I'm doing a series now of just science and STEM, these last few conversations I've been having with you on the Mike Muse Show, which gives me so much joy. As you guys all know, that is my background. I'm an industrial engineer by degree. I did chemical research for a long period of time. And so my bag is STEM. I love it. And so anytime I have a chance to talk to a fellow STEMmer, I kind of geek out a little bit and get a little bit of excited. But I have a returning nerd with me because nerds were the cool kids again, right? I was just telling my nephew that yesterday. I was working with him on some spelling and he got a really difficult word right. And I just cheered him on, and he's 6 years old. What up, Carter? And I was just saying how smart he is and how smart is the new cool. And my next guest, Tim Vanderham, the Chief Technology Officer of NCR, is here to prove once again, and I know Carter's listening, just how cool smart people can be. What's happening, Tim?
Hey, Mike, great to be back. You're right. Smart is where the cool kids are at these days, and love to connect with you again around STEM and everything going on in technology. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, my audience loved you the last time that you were here. It's always good when I have returning guests. My audience has been really receptive to the returning guests that I do have. I don't have returning guests often, just because I love new voices and new conversations. But there is a time when a guest kind of sticks with me, and I want to keep bringing them back. And I think the conversation we had last time was just brilliant on some of the wonderful things that NCR is doing, but particularly just how you think and how you think about technology. Tim, you're here today just because something really happened in the news recently that I found to be intriguing, cryptocurrency. There's a segment that I do on my morning show where it's called Ask Mike. And one of their frequent questions is about cryptocurrency, right? And my thoughts on cryptocurrency, my thoughts on Bitcoin, and my thoughts really on digital currency as a whole. And so this is a very popular question that I get. And so the fact that NCR has decided to acquire the company Liberty X in order to help with the payment system of cryptocurrency, I thought was just mind-blowing, because the whole idea of digital currency is what established entities would actually validate the digital currency base in space in fear for disruption of our traditional currency, right? There's always this thought process of traditional banking had a fear of digital currency and how would that affect the value of our dollar, right? Or value of currency, it would throw markets off into a tizzy. So with that being said, if I've characterized that correctly, let me know. If I mischaracterized that, also too, let me know. Then why was NCR so interested to come and throw its weight behind such a new operation?
No, I think you characterize it quite well, Mike. I think, fundamentally, it's still a unknown territory for so many people, right? I'm sure for so many of your listeners, they hear about it, they hear the buzz. It's all over the news again this morning. It's on my TV here in my office. I was just watching it before I started with you. And really, NCR jumped into this area because cryptocurrency or digital assets, digital currency, are the future of fintech. That doesn't mean cash is going away. That doesn't mean credit's going away. But when you think about the future innovation and the future explosion of technology when it comes to fintech, and that's fintech in banking and financial institutions, is also fintech in retail, this is the future. And so we have to embrace it. When we think about what we're doing at NCR, being at the center of the banking world and the center of the retail world and the center of the restaurant world, you have to be able to meet consumers where they want to be met. And there are so many, hundreds of millions of people now that are dipping their toes into cryptocurrency. It just made a ton of sense for us to throw our weight behind it, acquire a company, and really embrace this next wave of innovation. So think about it as Bitcoin on every block, or crypto on every corner, offered by NCR, cash to crypto, end to end.
Now, I made a broad assumption because our audience is forever growing, and so it may not have been familiar with the original conversation. Just highlight, just 30 seconds or less, what NCR is, right? I think that's important as we continue this conversation, and why it was important for me to ask that question to you the first time because of who NCR is.
Sure. So NCR is a technology provider. We serve 3 markets: banking, restaurants, and retailers. And so we serve software and services. We provide software and services for those customers. So you interact with NCR endpoints, physical or digitally, probably in every day of your life. Self-checkout machines, online ordering for grocery or restaurants, or going to an ATM or using a digital banking application. So that's what we do. And so providing the next generation of fintech into those solutions around cryptocurrency was really important for us.
Now, how is that working? Because some of the biggest drawbacks, well, it's changing now. Now that we have NFTs and the art world and music, and some people are getting involved in that, was where you can actually do transactions with digital currency and digital assets. And the idea was it was very limited in scope and scale, right? You couldn't just go into your local McDonald's or CVS and use crypto to make purchases, right? So how is NCR envisioning this future of, consistent consumer transactions on with regular intervals, right? And then what do you guys see that you guys will be providing as that goes forward?
Yeah, so there's really three aspects that we think we're going to provide kind of out of the gate initially. So one is just the ability for people to acquire cryptocurrency and put it in a wallet. So you just mentioned CVS. Many of your listeners probably don't know, you can actually get the LibertyX app, which is the company NCR just bought, download their app, do your onboarding like you would for any application with your identity, and actually go into a CVS, scan your wallet, give them cash, and load Bitcoin onto your wallet. That works at CVS today, believe that or not.
Wait, Tim. Repeat that again, go slower, because literally this is what my audience asks for all the time, for me to talk about Bitcoin and crypto and how to acquire it. So audience, again, rewind, pull the car over, stop mopping, sweeping, barbecuing. Just Tim is about to give you guys a breakthrough on how to do this stuff. Tim, again, start over. I go into CVS, I download this LibertyX app.
Right. So the LibertyX app, you can download that from either of your app stores, Apple or Google. You go through a registration process, which is your phone number, your text back. You take a picture of your ID so they know who you are. So you've gone through all the requirements to actually, be validated. And then you can literally walk into a CVS or a Rite Aid and go up to the cashier and scan a QR code, and it's going to pop up for that cashier the ability to say, how much money are you willing to, or are you giving them in cash? They load that into their app on their terminal, and within 5 minutes, you have Bitcoin in your wallet on your mobile device. So that's just one example of how we do it. But since you brought up CVS, I had to use that as an example because that's part of what we're doing.
I know some of my audience, it would be very clear. You know me, I'm discovering the conversation along with you. And so Tim and I had no pre-call. I don't believe in that. So I'm learning this with you. So I know the questions you have in your head because I have the questions in my head. Like, wait a minute. So Tim, I want to dive now, because this is such a great case study, a use case, for our audience to really understand, because you guys interface with CVS too as well, right? Like you guys provide operation support for that. And obviously with LibertyX now at its whim, when you say can get Bitcoin, so can a person go into CVS with the intentionality of buying and acquiring Bitcoin? Or is it just they are able to use the digital currency through LibertyX app in order to buy shampoo, for example?
No, so today it is acquiring Bitcoin and putting it in your wallet and storing it in your wallet.
Shut up. Tim, that's game changing. I see why you guys bought this app, because that's the whole biggest thing. Is like, how does one acquire? How does one get? And also too, the trusted source aspect of it.
Yeah.
So wait, is it the partial percentage of a Bitcoin too as well? Like, do you guys do the intervals of the fraction of the coin?
Yeah, absolutely.
What?
Yeah, if you put in $100, you'll get the equivalent of $100, which today is trading at 46,000 and some change for a Bitcoin. So you put in $100 and you get your fractional amount of your $100 in Bitcoin.
Audience, you're welcome. Like, I didn't even know what I was booking. Like, I just love Tim. I think he's just a genius, or whatever pretty much Tim wants he can have with the Mike Muse show when it comes to this type of stuff. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure, let's talk about this thing. But like, I didn't know you about to bless us, Tim, with how to, in order to get like Bitcoin that accessible. Because Tim, now we are, well, this brings me to the interesting place. You're making me think about this retail investor, right? Because we've seen what's happening within the last year with the retail investments. Audience, exactly what I'm talking about. But if not, the Robinhood thing and all that kind of stuff. And so we're looking at this retail investor. And so there's idea of the rise of the retail investor versus the corporate investments and traditional investments, right? So it's always like them versus those, right? And the idea, no matter what people think, no matter what you think, audience, about the validity of it, the validity of the retail bank investor, there is a need and a want that is out there for democratizing investments, right? And so this seems to me, Tim, what this is happening is the ability to democratize investments from a very valid source. This is why I was so intrigued, audience, on the front end to want to talk with Tim, because I couldn't believe that NCR was validating such a new type of digital asset and digital currency. And so the fact that NCR is validating LibertyX in the space to do it, it's a very trusted source, right? And so is this NCR's way of kind of getting into like the retail investor space?
I don't know if I go all the way to us being the center of the retail investor space as you describe it, but it is a way for us to allow the hundreds of millions of consumers that interact with NCR's touch points every day to be able to use whatever form of currency they want. So whether that being buying cryptocurrency, whether it be us ability to pay for the shampoo or your groceries at Whole Foods at some point in time down the road, or your meal at a steakhouse like Morton's. Those are all options of how people want to interact with cryptocurrency. And there's one other key thing that I think is really interesting, maybe for your listeners as well, and that is cross-border remittance. So you kind of asked at the beginning, why did NCR do this? NCR did it so people could easily acquire to your retail investor, anyone with cash or a digital banking account. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to discriminate as to who wants to get into the crypto world. So it could be a retail investor, it could be more wealthy individuals, but allowing them to acquire crypto, pay with crypto, and then if they want to transfer money internationally, say to Brazil or Mexico or Argentina, that's also part of our thesis. And LibertyX does it today from the US to Brazil, but we're planning to open up other markets. So you start looking at this as a medium of interchange that you're seeing happen by lots of companies. And so consumers interact with NCR software and technology all the time. Why can't we offer that same technology so you don't have to go somewhere else? You can do it right at your CVS, your Rite Aid, your Walmart, your Whole Foods, or your local gas station.
No, wait. So we have a lot of listeners who are on the coast, right, and our southern border, who frequently send money back to home countries, right? Yep. And so, if I understand you correctly, well, if I understand, regurgitate, ask it back, and then you're gonna need to clarify it. So what you're saying is that if I want to send a Western Union to a Latin American country, I can do this through this LibertyX NCR collaboration. What am I sending, and then what is being received? So am I sending crypto to, let's say, Mexico, and then on that side, it's turned into the currency, the peso?
Yep. Yeah. So I'll describe Brazil today because we do it for Brazil today.
Yeah.
But Mexico is on our roadmap. Dominican Republic, Argentina, El Salvador, with what they talked about, what they just launched into law yesterday. So how it works for Brazil. So someone goes into an agent today. My vision is eventually someone can go to a self-checkout machine at their grocery store and do this themselves, right? They can go into an agent today. They can say they want to send $500 cash to their aunt in Brazil. And they go through a process where they give the $500 to the agent. The agent processes their wallet off the Liberty app on their phone. It converts to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin goes to Brazil, and the Bitcoin is exchanged in Brazil back for reais and deposited in your aunt's bank account. Like that is a process that we have working today.
So let me ask you this question then. Why do it that way versus just sending $500 via Western Union to Brazil to your aunt?
So when you think about these money corridors, billions of dollars a year are transferred. And we're all public companies, so we have to make a little bit of money as well to stay in business. But we believe using cryptocurrency or this digital asset, A, it's instantaneous. B, we believe it's going to be cheaper for the consumer, for the individuals. And there's also a safety risk in some of these countries where you have to go to an agent and get the cash back and walk out the door. Whereas now we're saying, no, it can go directly into a bank account of your loved one.
Audience, this is equivalent if Tim and I were in the studio, I would have taken off my shoe by now and threw it at him because of the genius aspect of it. Because you cover so many things that's why I asked a question I wasn't thinking, but there is audience, think about like if you're doing Venmo payments or whatever, you have the ability to do instantaneous into your bank account, right? So what you guys are doing is eliminating fees. That's just number one. Two, you guys are because it's a verified system, eliminating where some people have to have a delay in your present availability in your bank account versus what is actually available. So essentially, since everything's already verified, it just goes straight into your aunt's bank account without a delay. The third thing is a safety measure, because a lot of times there are bad actors who hang around these type of centers, these check cashing placing facilities or whatever. So they know you're walking out with, digital cash. There is other safety risk. And so this eliminates some of those risk factors by keeping it in a digital space, and it's almost removal of the system. Tim, this is genius. This is brilliant. I'm so happy I know you. Like literally, like I just want to do more with you. Like, what else are you working on? That crazy brain of yours, right? Like, this is insane. So let me ask you then another question, because now I'm just racking my head now. Let's go back to shampoo at CVS. Let's say I have a Liberty X account, I uploaded it, I downloaded it, I went to CVS for conversation purposes, I put $100 in there. So I have $100 worth of Bitcoin. You mentioned Morton Steakhouse. Not much we can do for $100 at Morton Steakhouse, but let's just say $100. So $100 of Bitcoin, I want to go to Morton Steakhouse. You're treating, obviously, Tim. But, with that, can I then take that $100 worth of Bitcoin with my Liberty X app, pay for that meal at Morton's through my Bitcoin account? And I'm using Morton's because you mentioned Morton's always. I don't know if you guys have a partnership with Morton's or whatever restaurant where this could transpire at.
Yeah, and so the vision is, yes, that's going to happen. There are very few merchants today that are supporting the payment with Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. We actually announced you can actually pay for your an early launch of going and paying for gas at a Sheetz using Bitcoin. So they're one of the first convenience stores to allow this as well.
A lot of people know what Sheetz is. What's Sheetz?
Sheetz is a gas station.
That's a Southeast thing? Is that a Southeast thing?
They're founded in the Pennsylvania area, Western Pennsylvania. And then they're kind of over the Eastern Seaboard. So when you think about, I use Morton's as an example because their owner actually is quite fond of Bitcoin and aggressive in that manner. So the vision for your listeners is that'll absolutely be what can happen today. Very few merchants today support this because it's another way they have to accept payment. That's why NCR is getting into this business, because today we allow you at our terminals, if you're buying food at a restaurant or a gas station or groceries at a grocery store, we have the whole setup already there on how you can pay with cash, pay with credit, pay with debit, etc. So adding cryptocurrency into our solution as a form of payment, where then we can settle back to the merchant, the owners of those stores, or even think small businesses, if they want to settle back in the form of some crypto and some fiat, some US dollars, they'll have that option. So that's why we're kind of adding that into the ecosystem to make it more ubiquitous and not make it such a novelty at all these endpoints.
So for granular perspective, the answer is yes. I can take my Liberty X app, if it's in digital currency, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, go into a retailer that supports this and just make the transaction with the QR code, and the transaction can be done. That's genius. Wow. I'm kind of blown away.
Hey, Mike, can I chime in one other thing too that I think might actually blow your mind even more? So the next thing we're doing beyond the three I just mentioned is loyalty. And so start thinking about loyalty programs and cash back. And so start thinking about, if you get a loyalty program, rather than getting loyalty points, you're going to get 0.00001 of a Bitcoin back. And it's a way for people to start to dabble in this without putting their own money in it, allow for your loyalty rewards from a retailer or even a bank to go into a new different model, so you can start to learn about it. You can start to be educated on it without even risking any of your own money.
So, Tip, am I going to be on your advisory board at NCR? I'm on the board of directors. Like, I want equity at NCR. You don't have to pay me in cash. Just pay me in equity, as Beyonce says. So we're going to talk about that offline. And I'm kind of serious. I want to be part of your personal think tank, which gives me equity at NCR, because this shit is genius. With that being said, because you jogged my mind again about loyalty rewards points. We started the conversation off, you're looking at the ticker in terms of the value of Bitcoin right now. So riddle me this. So is Liberty X just a place where my Bitcoin is stored for currency but doesn't have an investment value? Or is it also an investment value? So think the difference between like a checking account and like a savings account, right? So is this a checkings account for conversation purposes, or is this like a savings account for investment purposes?
It's best right now to think about cryptocurrency wallets in general as primarily a checking account, a place to store your money, to store your assets, or these digital assets, the Bitcoin or the Ethereum or whatever it is that you're storing. But some of the biggest news today is happening around the lending side. So you asked earlier, what does NCR do? We support banks, retailers, and restaurants. So where my mind is also going then is, well, how do we allow our banks that are going to allow their banks customers to acquire cryptocurrency lending services back? And then so then it turns into a savings account where you can start to get interest back on the assets that you own. And this is happening today at a very small number. But again, our reach to all these banks, we believe we're in a good position to allow millions of consumers the ability now to turn that storage, that holding of an asset into a savings account, as you referenced, into more of a lending asset down the road with our banking partners. NCR is not going to do that ourselves, but with our banking partners, we're going to enable that for millions of people across the US and eventually the globe.
Tim, this is stupid. This is really stupid. I've been an officer my whole life. I don't even want a job. I literally want to be director of public engagement for NCR. And this is exactly what I want to do, because what you guys are working on is like just game changing. But audience, I say this is how much I'm like legit. And to my audience knows, because we talk about this frequently on the Mike News show, is that I never hawk products. Like I don't, it's rare I have a book author on, if ever. It's rare that I bring people on who has a product, right? Just because I don't buy into that kind of thing, unless you have a reason that I find impactful to be on. This is a reason here today. In conclusions, we wrap, because you got to come back, because clearly you guys are going to be, you guys are, NCR, I feel like is like the alpha, like Google's alphabet, right? Just like creating impossible and solving for the impossible kind of lab. I know you're not the chief technology officer. I know you're not in finance. NCR does not give financial advice. All the disclaimers I'm giving out, right? Guys, Tim is just a tech guy. Isn't that petty? He's just a tech guy. You have to say,
I'll take it. That's okay.
Yeah. How's your little business going? You know how people are like so like condescending, like, oh yeah, how's your little business going over there? Right? It's like, oh, Tim is just a tech guy. But to do that, to disassociate you from finance, how do you think, like with what you guys are doing and what like Liberty X is doing, like how do you think the financial markets and industry is going to respond, to because what's been going in their favor for this long is you can't do anything with it. So it's kind of been like just there over there. But you guys are now creating a vehicle for things that actually could happen. So like, what do you think the market's response is going to be as, it's not just NCR Liberty X, but just as more NCR Liberty X collaboration, whatever entities may be, go forward?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll share an interesting stat, because everybody that's listening to your show, I'm sure is an internet user, right? And we all know about how the internet came to be and its rapid growth in the late 90s. The internet went from 100 million users to 1 billion users in approximately 7.5 to 8 years. The current trajectory for cryptocurrency users going from 100 million users to 1 billion users is 4.5 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
half the time. So I share that because I think the financial institutions, whether it's regulated or unregulated, and I won't get into that discussion. We'll save that for the people in Washington and the regulators. But regardless of what happens, it's being used and consumed as a level of stored value, as a level of just speculation, and as a monetary medium for all of us as consumers to use. So I think the financial world is going to recognize they have to play in that game, or they're going to be on the sideline watching somebody else play in that game. And so as I talk to people in that realm, from banks and financial institutions, some are eager, like I am, because they realize it's the writing on the wall and it's the future of fintech. Some are maybe a little bit more reserved, and they'll eventually figure it out. So I think that's what's going to happen. And then we'll adjust and respond as we need to, and keep innovating around this awesome technology.
That's so great. So audience, now I've taken off his hat. I can put back on his chief technology officer hat. He's a big tech guy. Tim, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing, just your genius. I love how you make, and that's the other thing, most STEM people can't make things practical and relatable. And so it's just the gift and the curse of being so good at STEM. And so thank you for making it relatable to our audience. Thank you for making it really make sense. And thank you for just being dope, and for NCR for creating some really cool products for us to talk about from time to time.
Well, hey, Mike, it's awesome being here. Always awesome to talk to you and share what we're doing, and hear your questions, because it gives me more ideas on things I can go off and build as well. So I look forward to coming back and sharing more in the future, and always good to see you.
Yeah, don't forget my equity stake for that.
We got you. We'll get you looped. We'll get you looped in on that, man.
Thank you so much, Tim. Audience, what a great time we've had with Tim today. Stay right there, and we'll be right back.